Okay, this podcast is CNT140. We're going to do an overview of our bid specification project or our layer 1 design project we're going to do. Um, we're going to walk through the lab itself, look at some samples of what it looks like it's pulled together, and quick talk about how we're going to proceed through this throughout the semester. Now, first page as we look at, here's our design scenario. We are going to design a cable plant for a facility. Now, just to kind of get your head oriented right off the bat, cable plant, our entire focus of this whole project is layer 1. Cabling connections, patch panels, outlet jacks, patch cables, those kind of things. That's it. We're not going to worry about switches, routers, servers, anything like that. That'll happen in another class. So just to make things a little easier to focus on, we're just focusing on anything layer 1 in this project. In real life, you would worry about other stuff, but just for our simplicity in our class, we're only going to focus on layer 1 stuff. So the first page gives us some background on what different areas of the building, the different areas of our building, what they need for connections. And for us, that turns into how many cable drops gets installed in each area of the building, and therefore how many cables, how many patch panel ports, how many patch cables, those kinds of things we need to support that. Just to jump to the end, we are going to design a cable plant for our Midtown 2 building. The building that we have class in, we are going to pretend to network this. So we are going to design a cable plant to connect all these rooms to a main closet and get connectivity to the whole building. Now, luckily, CNT125 people, later this semester, you're going to do a design project where you put all the routers and switches in this building. So people that are taking 125 and 140 together, 140 you're going to pick out all the cabling and all the cable plan. 125 you're going to pick out all the routers and switches for this building. If you're only taking 140 this semester, your total only focus then is the cabling for this building, the layer 1 stuff for this building. As I look back at my design lab, the design lab talks about each classroom needs so many drops, each lab needs so many drops, and so forth. So we'll need to take a look at our building and figure out what all these areas are, and therefore how many cable drops that each area of that building needs. All right, so let me jump back to our lab here. So the first page walks you through what each area of the building needs. All right, if I keep going, the next part of our design lab talks about what do we need to submit for this whole thing. Well, there's a couple pieces we're going to need to pull together. One is a Microsoft Word document that we're going to do that's going to describe how different parts of your plan got handled. Now, this realistically is going to need to be done towards the end of the semester, last week or so of class, if you will. You're going to write up some paragraphs that say, this is what media I used in my building and why. This is how I picked out my closets and why. This is how I handled my cable routing and why. This is how I handled end user termination and why. This is how I handled cable certification in my building and why. Well, when you're done, it looks kind of like this. I'm going to pull a student sample up here. This student went through and started giving me a paragraph on this is the media they used and why they used it. This is their closet locations and why. This is the equipment in their closet and why. And there's rack drawing and all that good stuff. Here's their patch panel layout and why. Here's their cable routing for their building and why. So it's just a handful of paragraphs that you'll do to describe areas about your plan that are not quite obvious when you just look at maps. So that is one piece of your project that you will do probably towards the end of the semester. That's usually the easiest time to do that. Let me go back to here, when you kind of have this stuff figured out. The second part of your plan you're going to pull together and submit is your spreadsheet. Well, all semester long, as we talk about a specific part of cabling, we are going to add that to our project. So all semester long, you're going to be adding stuff to a spreadsheet. When we talk about patch panels, we will add that to our spreadsheet. When we talk about outlet jacks, we will add that to our spreadsheet. So all semester long, you'll be adding equipment to a spreadsheet for this facility. So you will submit that for your plan. So here's roughly what it looks like. As we talked about horizontal cabling, the student added it onto their cost sheet. As we talked about patch cables, they added it. As we talked about work area outlets, they added it. So here's their equipment. It's some, but it's not a whole lot of gear. And you'll notice that they have a description. Over here they have specific model numbers. They have the unit price, total price, and then the grand total down here. They've added it all up. Here's the grand total for their project. And then over here on the right you see the URLs or sources for their gear. So that's the next part of your plan that you will be submitting that has in, like I said, all the equipment for the plan. In addition, we're going to do two other things with spreadsheets. One is we are going to, when we start off towards the beginning of the semester, we are going to need to tally up how much cabling our building needs. So one of our tabs here, this was the cost sheet tab we looked at. One of the other tabs we have is how they estimated how much cabling they need. And I will show you how to do this in another podcast, and we'll even highlight it in class how you do it. Here's how they I should say, this is the spreadsheet they created to tally up the amount of cabling their building needs. So they just have that on a separate tab. There's one other thing that needs to be on the spreadsheet, and that is how they organize their patch panels. How did they organize the patch panels for their building to support all the cable drops in the building? So here is their patch panel layout tab on their spreadsheet. So you'll notice it's one big spreadsheet with estimating at the beginning of the semester, tallying all the equipment as we went, and then how they laid out their patch panels. That's the next part of your plan that you have that you'll need to submit. Next one is some maps. We're going to need to make a couple maps that shows 4 specific things: where the closets are in the building, horizontal cabling, backbone cabling, and cable support. These can be done in something as simple as paint. It does not have to be anything fancy, but I do need to show my customer, if you will, how I'm taking care of their building. Here's a sample. There is on D2L we have some maps that you can download and draw right on top of. This student kind of put it all on one map and color coded it. Here is labeling his closets, and then from there showing horizontal cabling going out to rooms, backbone cabling between, and then the green is cable trays. So they're showing this is how they're taking care of cabling this building. So we would need to show that in either one or several maps. One map color code is fine, or multiple maps, does not matter, but I need to show my customer how we're going to cable their building for them. The next thing we need, and we'll do this towards the end of the semester, is a quick timeline on how we're going to implement their plan for them. So if I come over here, I'll scroll up a little bit. We actually have a program called Gantt Project that allows you to show very quickly all the phases of the install and about how long it's going to take. I have another podcast that shows you how to use this program. You can either use Gantt Project, you can use like Microsoft Visio, and I think even Draw.io allows you to make a quick timeline if you want to use that as well. But we want to show these are the different tasks we're going to do for the customer and about how long each task takes for them. That's the next part of our plan. Again, that one's usually easy to do at the end of the semester. We have 2 more things we need to plug in. One is equipment rack drawings. Now, 125 people, towards the end of 125, you will be doing a design lab where you need to do an equipment rack drawing showing all the routers and switches. Well, in this class 140, our total focus is just the patch panels kind of thing for the cabling. So you have some, kind of double duty here. If you're doing it in 125, you can do save as for here, or if you're doing it here in 140, you can do a save as for 125. But the ultimate end goal for this class is a rack drawing that shows, let me scroll down here a little bit, that shows how the equipment is going to be in your equipment closets. And this student has a quick rack drawing showing patch panels, wire management panels, and even put switches in. That's okay. I wasn't looking for that, but I'm sure this student did it for 2 different classes. So it made it easier for them to just kind of make one complete rack drawing for their design lab. And last but not least, we need to include our load table. When we talk cable trays in, I forget, I think it's like chapter 14 or something like that. When we talk cable trays or cable support, We're going to use a utility called the cable fill load table that's going to help us estimate the size of our cable trays. So you will need to save that for submission. And this student, I believe, had it, actually it's right here. Here's a copy of their cable fill load table. They just did a screenshot of it to show this is all the cabling in the tray. These trays are not large enough. These down here labeled OK are large enough or strong enough to support all the cabling. So they did a quick screenshot of that to show they did that step. That's fine. That's more than adequate. So we would need to make sure we include that in our submission as well. So as we're doing this, going back here real quick, you'll need to submit a Word document that has some descriptions in. You'll need to submit your spreadsheet that has like 3 tabs in: estimation, patch panel, layout, cost sheet. You have a couple maps you're going to submit, or one map that's color-coded. We have a timeline that we'll do towards the end of the semester that shows roughly how we're going to install this for the customer. We need a quick rack drawing to show patch panels and wire management, that sort of thing, for our equipment closets. And then the load table that we did when we talked cable trays. Those are the pieces of your bid spec and kind of what they look like. And I have some reminders here about kind of how we're going to proceed. And we're roughly going to do these kind of in order: site survey, determining our closets, starting our spreadsheet for cable estimation, starting our car sheet, starting our maps, starting our patch panel layout, doing the cable fill load table, doing the rack drawings, doing the timeline, doing our descriptions, and then pulling it all together. And I have a reminder down here of all the stuff that we need to pull together for submission. And this can be a multiple file submission. That's okay. That'll be easy peasy in the Dropbox. I have some reminders here about writing style. This should be a third person thing, so I have some tips in here on how to do that if you need some help on that. And then I have a copy of the grade sheet of the rubric that will be used. This will be done. Your project will be submitted to the Dropbox on D2L, the rubrics on D2L, but I copied it here so you could see the different areas of your plan. It looks like a lot, but really I broke it down so it's a little bit easier to know. These are my descriptions I need. Here's the stuff I should have on my spreadsheet. And then here's my maps, here's my timeline, here's my equipment rack drawing, here's my load table. So it looks like a lot. It's just kind of broken down so you know that you have all the pieces. But there's a copy of the grade sheet of the rubric for your bid spec. And again, we're doing it for this building here, the Midtown 2 building. So there's a quick overview of the bid spec, kind of what it looks like when it's completed, but also how we're going to do it and some tips on how we're going to do that. Some of the specifics on maps and those sorts of things, I have other podcasts to show you specifically how to do each piece.